Hello, and welcome back to the Flask Full of Failure podcast. The intro that sounds exactly the same, and I genuinely want to hear what I sound like every time I do it. Um, Today, well, I guess I always forget I never introduce myself anytime that we do this. I'm Logan, and now on the live version, we actually have pictures of ourselves, so you can see kind of what we look like in a cartoon style. Today, I'm joined by
Hello, I'm Scott.
he did it. A round of applause for him, please.
No.
Um, it's great. It's the first time he's ever been able to do it without, or I guess with a slight cue. And then also joined by
It's me, Taylor.
the bundle of joy himself.
If anyone manages to figure out who I am from the picture, I'm going to kill you before they can.
Fair enough. All right. Well, today we are gonna be diving into the emotions in games, and I guess also games that were like highly impactful too, whether they're emotional or I guess just kind of no, I guess emotional impact. I will apologize for any sniffliness or any like,
Oh,
oh my
pardon me.
god.
Well.
That brought this podcast to just a screeching halt. I'm not getting
I
rid of
did
that.
that into the floorboards. I was hoping that it would be less pronounced that way.
It was not.
It was definitely not. I was going to apologize about being a sniffly, croaky mess today, but like you just took the cake. I don't think I have anything to worry about anymore. That's great.
It sounded less like you were trying to muffle yourself and more like you just sneezed yourself across the room.
Oh,
That's why
wow.
you were far away.
That was beautiful. All right, well, anyways, like I said, we're starting with emotions and games, and what we're doing is, impactful games that had a fairly strong emotional pull to us. And I'm not talking about just like frustration from Dark Souls because I feel like that's kind of a cop out.
But
Which I
Logan,
mean,
that's the only way I feel emotion.
that's true though. That is accurate. Also, we're not counting like rage and like League of Legends per se, because I think that's happened to
Yeah,
all of us at some point.
that was my other one.
Oh no. Well, Taylor's useless in this podcast is what we've learned.
Which,
You're right.
by the way, a random tangent, Taylor. The Ray messaged me today and said he wants to play League again soon, and I was
I
like,
thought he almost
are
died
you
from a
okay?"
rage aneurysm last time.
He did, and that's why I was like, are you sure?
Yes. I went out with some friends who know him, and they commented on that.
Oh no.
And he's
Oh
like, "Oh, is
no.
Ray okay?" And I was like, "No, he's not."
He never has been. Never will be. Um so finally getting into our topic, if we ever do that actually. Um I guess we'll let Scott go with his first option that he has.
Oh goodness me. I guess I'll start with my best one then. So finally, a good reason to talk about this game has arisen.
Oh, you're gonna sit down.
Um,
Okay, I'm worried.
no, so I mention this game all the time. Well, maybe not all the time, but enough, just because it's one of those. It's one of those games that I feel like I'm the only person on the planet that has played it. I'm sure everyone has at least one game like that, but this one is called Fragile Dreams, and it's for the Wii. And this game I really, really like for a lot of reasons. Um, but one of the reasons is it elicited a lot of emotional response from me. There wasn't really any one moment where like something happened and I was like, oh God. It was more of like the whole game was just kind of tickling my soul in certain ways. Um, so basically, the the game is it's kind of like I guess you would call it post apocalyptic setting. I'm pretty sure that's what's being implied. Or actually, yeah. Now that now that I remember, that is exactly what's happening. It's never really explicitly stated though. But basically, you're playing as this guy whose grandfather has died, and now you're just kind of like going around trying to find other human survivors, which there are not very many of. And it's pretty much him chasing after this one person the whole game, just to try and be like, hey, wait, we might be the only two humans left. So as part of the game, you can pick up these like random pieces of garbage, and I forget what the game calls them, but I guess like mementos maybe. Um, and it's stuff like a mug or like a pen or some random notepad. And basically, anytime you find a campfire, the campfire kind of serves as like save points. And also, every now and then, there's like a random chance that a merchant comes by, and that's where you can buy stuff. But in addition to that, when you go to the campfire with these items, you can actually like hear kind of not the final thoughts, but the strong thoughts of the person who owned the item. Um, and for one thing, it's just like a nod to the game's polish, I guess, is that they got basically different voice actors for almost every item, I'm pretty sure. So that it actually felt like you were just finding items from random people that, dropped them after they died or while they died. And a lot of the items had some pretty intense thoughts associated with them. Because some of them were thoughts from before the like world was ending. Some of them were thoughts from like during the world ending. So they would talk about what was going on, what was going through their heads, like I'm scared, daddy, that kind of thing. And basically, the more you do this, the more you start to kind of learn about what it was like. Because the game itself, other than this, never really tells you anything else about what was happening until the very end. And so that's kind of how you learn about what's going on. Um, so pretty much those, just the hearing like those thoughts, and the best part is like the whole game has almost no music. It's very quiet, and the like hearing these people talking about their life experiences and their thoughts and dreams and passions and stuff while listening to a crackling fireplace in the background, it just like filled me with a sense of connection to those people, and it actually like kind of I was able to empathize with what they were saying and what they were feeling. um, One of them in particular that I remember, which this one was less of like, oh, I feel what you're feeling. This one was more of like, just it made me smile at the end of it. There were bells you could pick up among these items, and each bell was basically owned by the same person. And there was like kind of a journey that she was going on, and she would talk about her story and what she was doing. And as you start picking them up and keep going, you start to form what you think is going on. Because she talks a lot about different families she lived with, different ways they treated her and stuff. And so you kind of are like, okay, I think this is an orphan that's like doing all this stuff. And it's obviously better than how I'm explaining it. But basically, there's like 7 or 8 of those bells, and then you get to the final one, and then the girl says something. I forget exactly what it is, but she says something, and then at the end of it, just the meaning of all the other bells is completely flipped around, because you realize, oh my god, it's a cat, not a person. And suddenly, like,
Oh.
and you just sit there and your mind is blown, and you're like, oh my god, it wasn't an orphan, it was a cat. That explains so much. And so, like, I would say, if there was one that left an impression on me, it was definitely that one. And like, it just made me feel like, because I was like, you get into it, you're like, oh, you're following it on the journey, and you're wondering like, how's this story going to end? And then when the meaning of everything is completely flipped, suddenly you're just like, oh. And then there's certain things that happen that you were like, that seems kind of mean to do to a kid and stuff. But then when you realize the cat, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of sweet if it's a cat, you know. And suddenly, like, a lot of things start making sense. Where like when she said like, oh, I told my parents this, but they didn't listen, or they didn't understand and stuff. I was like, man, those parents suck. But then now it's like, oh, well, it's a cat. Obviously, they didn't understand, So,
I'm trying to think of
anyway,
an instance of something that like you could be mean to an animal.
well, or like, I guess I meant like, basically there were certain times where she would say like, I kept begging my parents to do this for me, but they would never do it. And like you interpret that as neglect or like ignoring it. But then when you realize it's a cat, or basically it would be like or it'd be like the cat would say something like just like, please, you have to, there's someone dying outside on the curb, you have to help them. And then the parents would just be like, oh, you're so cute, or something like that, you know? And the whole time you're like, what is wrong with these people? But then you're like, oh, it's a cat, so it was just meowing. Like, so anyway, I really enjoyed that mechanic of that game, and especially it's also like one of the few games where I elected to play the English version of it instead of the Japanese version, and they did a phenomenal job. Because a lot of times when things get English translate or English dubs, they sometimes like maybe like I don't know how to say, but like they don't put as much effort into it as they do the original. Like if they might get like one voice actor to play 5 characters that had 5 different voice actors in the original, or like, you know, if there was like an insert song or something, they might not actually sing it, stuff like that. But the fact that they did the same thing where they got a different voice actor for every object that you picked up was really, really neat. And they were all like really good and actually sounded like they were super into their characters. So it really does not. It's that creation of that atmosphere is what really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And
Also, I feel like a lot of emotional stuff that you can pick up from the like original language dubbing kind of gets lost as well, because no one really screams like a person can in Japanese.
Right. I
it's
mean,
always weird. It's like, how do they make that noise, and why can you only do it in this language?
and like, yeah, there's just some enunciations and ways of expressing stuff that doesn't carry over well, and I don't know. And then the other thing is like, it sounds different depending on what you're native to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you might hear something and think it sounds cool, where a native person might think it's the cringiest thing ever.
I mean, that's always the problem with a lot of like translated lyrics for songs in anime and video games, because Japanese doesn't translate to English super well because it's a very flowery, poetic language. And so when you translate it into other languages, it just sounds kind of stupid or like really goofy.
The other thing about this game is like there's sometimes this is gonna there's another one of my things that I'll trace back to this, but I think that a game is done really well when it can get you attached enough to a character. If let's say like they disappear or die or are killed or whatever very shortly after you first meet them, if they can get you attached enough to them to feel something in that short span of time, then they've done a really good job. Yeah, and this game definitely does that. And I think actually the person, so basically like as the dude is wandering the wastelands and stuff, he's alone for a decent portion of it, but then towards the middle, he runs into a ghost of a girl that died in a hotel, and she basically hangs out with you for the rest of the game. But there's a lot of like interesting stuff going on where like it's like a lot of people, because there are like a decent amount of ghosts that you encounter, and most of them are like really okay with their death to an extent that you wouldn't think they are based on their personalities and stuff. And it's just, there's a lot of interesting character building that they do in the game. The controls and stuff are subpar, but
the emotional experience. If I feel like if a game hits you at a point where like the emotional experience is enough to be like, you know, you go back and compare it to like the emotional experience of the controls of the game, or like how good the game was, kind of thing. I feel like you're hitting a point of being like, okay, that was actually like a really, you know, like a really top quality thing. So
there's also like, this is less of an emotional thing and more of just like a really good job of building atmosphere. But like horror games, and this isn't really a horror game, but There's one place in particular. So like it's kind of dark for a lot of the beginning of the game, but there's like an abandoned hotel that you go to towards the middle, and it's broad daylight outside. But even though it's broad daylight, it's still like really creepy and scary. And being able to execute that, I think, is really tough. To be able to make something creepy and spooky when the sun is blaring down on it
Oh God, yeah,
is,
no.
is like really
because
impressive.
because one of the big things is like when you're afraid of stuff, you're like your thought process is I'm gonna go turn on a light now because for some reason that'll get rid of it. But if you're in a situation where there's
Right.
like glowing light and you're still terrified, you're like, oh no 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 no.
Yeah, and I will say there is, and I'm not going to bring this up again, but there is a scene in the one of the corpse party games that does this, where it's like there's like people they're in like a recording booth or something, and there's obviously like a lot of lights on in the recording booth. They're like doing a radio show, and then like the ghost of the main dead girl in corpse party like just is sitting in the corner of the room, and only one of the people in the room can see her, and it's really creepy just because of a there's only one person that can see her, b like all the lights are still on, they're still doing the radio show, but like all the other atmospheric cues are making it really spooky, and it's crazy.
On a side note,
um
I do want to apologize for all the like audio clicks. This is to anybody listening. Like I said, I'm just like a sneezy mess right now, so that's just me muting. That's me unmuting my microphone so that I can take care of my face. So, not to take away from the moment.
oh
Also,
yeah, no.
also, Scott, I think we're just making a bit of a theme in this podcast of Scott has to mention Corpse Party at least once.
I don't think I mentioned it at all in the last one. I don't remember, but
Someone's got
course.
to go play back that tape.
It's just like you go to the last one, and this is why I think Corpse Party has the best soundtrack out of any video game ever made.
We're just like, wait, what?
I don't even
How?
remember saying that.
All three of us are like, I don't remember him saying that either.
I do really like Corpse Party's soundtrack, by the way. But
Okay, no one cares.
anyway, guilty. It's a guilty pleasure at this point, I think.
So I guess we can move to Taylor. Do you have an example of a time?
Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and steal one of the ones you mentioned earlier and just open discussions of it now and just go in the complete opposite direction of whatever meaningful thing Scott was talking about and talk about Bro Force.
Oh,
Just
I
a game
thought
that causes just pure, delirious, stupid joy whenever we play it.
I will be fair that was a game that I saw and I'm like, what the fuck is this gonna be? And then I looked at it and we started playing it. I was like, I've never had so much fun in all of my life.
Oh God.
I mean, not really, but like, I'll let you continue talking about it. I just
But
I
yeah,
wanna add
essentially, for anyone who's unaware, Broforce is a like a side-scrolling shooter in which you play basically action movie heroes with the serial numbers filed off. They don't even actually do that. They just like replace their names with
bro.
puns on the word bro, like the Brodator instead of the Predator and stuff like that. And the terrain is almost completely destructible, and you can imagine what sort of shenanigans that gets up to. And you can play with like 3 other friends. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of big stupid explosions. The Terminator can use his minigun to fly, as Garrett discovered, and then
Yeah.
repeatedly use.
That game is just like a not a cesspool. That's not the right word. Damn it. Just like a pit of joy.
Mhm.
Wondrous joy. I would also say like wonder too. Maybe not wonder, but like I think the moment you turn it on, the moment you realize that like I can play a game with my friends where I'm just getting to be famous action heroes, beating the shit out of just random army people and then the fucking devil.
Well, yeah, then you go to hell for some reason.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that's definitely like
But yeah, the
joyous.
the wonder thing is a fun thing you mentioned, since every time you like unlock a new character from that, everyone's just kind of like, "Oh, what does this guy do? What is that?"
Who is he? What are we gonna do now? And then you jump off a cliff and kill yourself on
Yeah.
accident. And you get
why does MacGyver throw turkey bombs? Who knows? It's great.
because he would make a turkey bomb. Make a real life turkey bomb. Be like, yeah, turkey bomb.
Indeed.
Ugh. Did you have anything else to say on Broforce?
Probably not.
That's fine. I feel like I have a lot more than everybody else, and I'm almost like thinking if I should like just group them together in like these made me feel this emotion. I guess we'll just talk about the more important ones. So the first one is the original BioShock, the good ending of the original BioShock.
I knew it.
I fucking cried. And that not only that, but this is one of the things of Garrett, who tends to be not emotionless, but like does not often show emotions at I guess media would be the best way to put it. Like non-real events, he doesn't show a lot of emotion towards. He was like, this made me cry. I guess spoilers for anybody who hasn't played to the end of BioShock. If you get the good ending and save all the little sisters, you get this wonderful scene of oh no, I forgot the main character of the first game. What's his name?
His name Jack.
Jack. Oh,
The most generic human
That's right.
person.
But once Jack finally leaves Rapture, he saves all the little sisters, and basically the last scene is just this like wonderful thing about showing his life being great and successful, and or at least happy. He lived a happy life, and just the last image is just him with a bunch of female hands on it. And I'm just like, oh my god, it's all the sisters he saved, and then I just start crying because it's a beautiful fucking moment. It's not even like sad; it's just beautiful. So I mean, I don't know how else to go into that from this game that you're just like, I don't know, a bunch of crazy shit happens and the splicers are still the scariest fucking things.
Yeah, I always kind of found the not to get on too much of a tangent, but I found the moral choice in BioShock to be really silly because it's like it's not really particularly nuanced. It's like, do you save this little girl like every normal human being would, or do you eat her?
Well, but you also have to think that it's more of a the point of it is, do you save this little girl or do you eat her and get the ability to upgrade yourself? Which to a lot of people in video games are like, hell yeah, I'm gonna upgrade myself.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, I
great.
guess it's also just it's undermined a little bit by the fact that you do still get stuff from saving them,
You
and then
get
if you save
less.
enough of them, you get more rewards later on.
Yeah.
So it's like no reason not to not eat them,
Now to be
aside from the obvious not being a fucking psycho.
as I say, to be fair though, if you think about it from like somebody who didn't know any answers beforehand, like
Mhm.
they don't tell you, oh yeah, it's like, because I think the way they explain it is they're like, if you kill the little sister, you get more Eve or whatever the hell it was.
Adam,
Adam.
I think.
Yeah.
Eve.
Whatever. They're both biblical people. You get more Adam from like murdering them, but if you save them, but you don't get anything from them. And that's how the game prefaces it. So like at that point you're like, okay, I could save them and then I just like morally feel like a good person, or I could eat them and actually get an upgrade kind of thing. So
I mean,
yeah, I mean, it just plays with your head a little bit on the moral choices. Also, as
yeah.
I've learned, people can just like choose to be assholes in games, which I have so much trouble with. So, hooray! Should I keep going, or do you guys want to throw in more?
I mean,
You
I
mean
guess
keep
I
going
have
with Bioshock, or you mean move on to your next topic?
Move on to my next one. I just don't know. Like, I have quite a few, and you guys said you don't have very many, so I didn't know if you wanted me to like.
I could like interject and just mine's not. I don't think the rest of mine aren't as long as that first one.
Right.
But I have a couple more if you want me to like.
I'll let you go ahead. Just go ahead and tell the next one.
So this one, I kind of mentioned this last time or last podcast, but there were quite a few points in Super Mario Galaxy that, and there's actually it's two and a half Mario related ones on here. So there's a lot of parts in Super Mario Galaxy that made me feel something, and I'm still not entirely sure what was going on. but Galaxy was like, it was almost like, and I'm trying to think. There's a point in the recent years where Nintendo kind of stopped taking like radical. They stopped taking Mario in uh like directions that are unsafe, if that makes any sense.
I think I get
So
what you mean.
like they started following like a formula, or like I guess they just wanted to stop taking chances on stuff, and they created a couple of guidelines for every future Mario game. One of those guidelines being Toad has to be a major focus. Um, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like there's like a point where for some reason Toad has to be important in every Mario game. So
Yeah, because
I
now
don't
you
know.
have Captain Toad.
Oh yeah. Um,
Hooray!
but I think Mario Galaxy was one of the last ones where like they decided to kind of take a chance, I guess. I mean, not that Mario Galaxy is like super crazy or anything, but it's the design space that was never majorly explored before, being like a 3D gravity based platformer. Um, but their the story like behind Galaxy, I think is really cool because it's not like, it's like, oh, Bowser's the villain, but they did a lot of cool stuff with Rosalina. Um, for anybody that doesn't remember entirely, Rosalina is kind of like, she's like a girl on a planet, and I think the Lumas visited her planet, and then they offered to take her into space uh to like play with the stars or whatever. And after she like went in the space, she was like, I want to go home, and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't know how to get you home because we're all like star creatures that don't care about anything. And so she
Fucking,
just kind of
we fucking kidnapped you. Take that,
yeah,
bitch.
they're like, it's just like, I was like, and then she gets all sad and stuff, and then she just kind of accepts her new life among the stars. um and for one thing, that's kind of sad,
Um,
but
I think sad's an understatement, honestly.
but like just I love Rosalina, by the way, but I mentioned last time that freaking the Space Junk Galaxy music just always made me unusually melancholy, um, as well as a lot of other galaxies in there, because a lot of them are fun and happy, but there's a lot of moments that are very somber in that game, and like really enforce that whole, wow, space is space, isn't it, kind of feeling,
Space is
where it's like
vast and terrible.
it's vast and terrifying. And there are a lot of galaxies in Mario Galaxy that encompass that feeling. Um, and I think that, it again, it's like, I don't know what I felt exactly, but there were a lot of times in Mario Galaxy that I felt uncomfortable because it was Mario Galaxy, like it was a Mario game that was pulling on some sort of heartstring, and I was uneasy, I guess. But the Rosalina stuff is also pretty sad, and it's also because like she presents it in a good way. Like you learn about her backstory by like every time you light up a new part of the observatory. um she tells, like, she's like telling a bedtime story to all the Lumas, and you can listen in, and every time you complete a new area, she adds a new chapter, and like she doesn't say it, but it's very obviously her story.
Yeah,
um and so it's like the fact that she's telling her own backstory as a bedtime story, despite it being kind of sad, is neat, because it's like, she's come to terms with it, and for some reason feels the need to tell it as a bedtime story.
I think that's nice of her being like, let me tell this as a bedtime story, and like, please take me the fuck home. Please help me. Please.
um Now I will also say that aesthetic wise, there are a couple things. There's one thing that comes to mind immediately that just really spooked me in Mario Galaxy, which was there's a boss, I forget his name, but it's just like a skeleton fish, and being stuck in underwater with that fish, and it was like in like it was like around like a water planet, so you have to go around the planet and stuff. And being stuck underwater with that scary fish and the music that was playing was like very Jaws esque, and just not because of the way the 3D motion worked, you couldn't always see where it was, or you had to like go around and try and find it and stuff. And just that also scared me. um, you saw this fit. Do you know what fish I'm talking about?
I'm sure I do. I just can't. Like, I'd have to see a picture of it first, and then like I'd be reminded of it immediately. Like when you just say that, I'm like, what? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But
but yeah. So Mario Galaxy is a very like it does a very good job of capturing the essence of space, and the essence of space is spooky and terrifying and makes you think stuff.
It's horrifying. Yeah, no, it's a scary place.
I'm so literate right now.
It's spooky.
It's spooky and terrifying and makes you think stuff.
Yeah, that's all you need.
You think Scott might have said that off the top of his head, but he was actually consulting his notes while he was saying that, and he has that written down in a little spiral-bound notebook.
It's scary stuff.
And it makes you think stuff.
I just got off of work and I spent the whole thing doing like obligation conversations.
Oh, good.
I'm sure we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
The word "stuff" was highlighted
and underlined. It had a little star next to it.
This is important.
Very important word. All right. Oh, Jesus Christ! I don't remember that.
And it has like spotlights come out of its eyes when it's moving around. So
maybe I do remember that. I think this might be another moment where like, terrible segue. We'll segue into mine next, and then we can go back to Taylor. I was gonna go with trauma in games, and I guess also fear as a side thing. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the like. I have 4 down for this, I think, so I'm just gonna go with it if everybody's cool with that.
Logan is very easily traumatized.
It's yeah, I guess that's probably right. But yeah, I was saying, I wonder if I just like repressed that memory out of trauma because I've done that before. So if we're talking about trauma specifically, the big one would be Doki Doki Literature Club. That game fucked me up. I actually, on my Twitch channel, have a fucking video of that where you can see. Well, actually, it might be gone now. Damn it. I'll have it up on YouTube at some point. But yeah, you can basically see where there's a moment where I just go, no, fuck this game. And I, no lie, went to the bar afterwards where my now girlfriend and my dad were, and they both were like, yeah, you seem a little bit distant right now. I'm like, yeah, I may have played a game I shouldn't have played. They were like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So I kind of zoned out and like just stopped responding to people for a little bit there. It was not a good moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, we also like left it off at like the harshest moment. Spoilers. That I guess this is a fully spoiled podcast since we're discussing things that make you feel emotions, and the endings of games are usually where the emotions are. But yeah, spoilers for Doki Doki Literature Club. The part where Sayori kills herself, that's where we left off previously. And that's the harshest part. Like when you get into the second part of the game, it's still spooky and scary, but it's also a lot goofier, I guess. I don't know if Scott had the same feeling about it.
I definitely did.
But once the game revealed itself, it became like really funny to me. Because it's just so glitchy, and it's like not like funny in like haha jokes kind of way, but in a like what's happening kind of way. And it's fun, but yeah, that part is very real and very uncomfortable.
Speaking of trauma in games almost breaking themselves, though, the moment the Flowey turned into that horrifying monstrosity still scares the shit out of me. I am still fucking scared of that. I can hear that horrible laugh, or I can hear the beginning of I hear the build up to it, and I just hear the and I'm like, I'm done. I have to leave. I can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of Undertale was one I was probably going to talk about if it came back to me, but now we're just kind of having an open discussion, I guess. But yeah, Undertale was one that definitely made me feel a lot of emotions. I had a hard time, like it was definitely really scary when it first appeared, but after a while I kind of realized it like Ultra Flowey is something that someone would have made on like Newgrounds back in like 2007.
And that's fine. But for me, I think the reason that there was like so much like I say trauma, but like the reason I was so fucking scared of it was because the entire game goes, oh hey, here's this kind of interesting 8-bit stuff, but it never breaks the 8-bit thing or whatever, you know, like it never goes out of the like text adventure, here are some pictures kind of thing. It's like, okay, it might do crazy stuff where you have like, you know, your little like health bar or whatever, your little like, you know, you have to change the way you interact with things and that, but it never changes from that style. Then all of a sudden you come up to Flowey and I was like, okay, this is horrifying, like he's a little bit freaky, whatever. And then all of a sudden he just comes out and it's just real life images pasted together to make this giant monster, and I was like, I'm done, I can't. Also then like it's not only that, but it also shuts off your game and does all that weird like shit where it like fucks with your computer too. So like having something go from this like, oh, this game's kind of cool, it's not really fucking with anything, to all right, well, here I am as a monstrosity made of real life pictures. Also, I'm gonna turn your game off. I was like, no, I'm done. I can't do this. This is too much for me. Also, I was tired. It was late, and I think when I finally made it, I was like, oh, thank God, I made it to the final boss. I could do this. And then Flowey showed up, and I was like, I'm done. Fuck this game. This game's horrifying. Also,
Yeah.
I killed whatever the lady was at the beginning, and I've never felt so bad about a decision in my life.
You son of a bitch.
I didn't do it intentionally. I did it.
How could you do that to your own mother?
I did that, and I was like, well, because I was sitting there, and it was because the game kind of teaches you how things work, but it never fully just goes like every single person, because that's the thing about Undertale. Everybody knows to take the pacifist run because people told them to take the pacifist run. It never tells
Yeah.
you that you have to do that.
Well,
So-
at the beginning, it's like, I mean, at the beginning, she's like, if you encounter a monster, you should just talk to it.
I mean,
and,
it tells
and,
you
and
it tells you
resolve
what
the conflict.
it tells you what to do, but I was also thinking in the
It never
logic
tells you to fight. So like it might not tell you like explicitly don't kill anything, but it also there's no point where it says it might be better to kill something.
I
Yeah,
guess
I mean it could have probably there is a point that you should where it like discusses trying to spare monsters even if you can't,
Mhm.
like even if there's no, but they definitely could have done a slightly better job with the
Yeah.
Toriel fight about making it obvious that repeatedly trying to spare her was actually doing something
that was
rather
the
than just yeah.
that was the struggle I had, is that I thought, you know, like it kept telling you like you can just spare monsters. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep sparing the monsters. And I got to her and I was like, well, maybe boss fights are different. That was my mindset, because
Nah, fam.
you kept trying and she never changes her way. So I didn't try enough, obviously. And so I ended up killing her. Or I thought, no, I remember what my thought process on it was. I thought that I thought that if I got her health down low enough, that it would change the way the interaction would go. And then what happened is that one last time it was too much and it killed her, and I was like, oh no, oh no,
Yeah.
oh no, and then she was just dead, and I was like, well, fuck. So
No,
I think
you just gotta spare her. Don't hit your mother.
I think that that has a different kind of trauma for me, instead of it being the trauma of I killed her because I wanted to kill her. I think it was I killed her because I thought that was how I was supposed to do it. And
Oh,
I was like,
this is my fault. Yeah, Undertale definitely does a very good job of making you feel like a complete asshole.
and I did. And then I played back through it again, and you say something to her, and it's like, man, I feel like I killed her before. And I was like, I don't like that.
It remembers.
Oh yeah, I fucking hate that.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Also, there's the whole like genocide run playthrough, which is basically the worst end if you do it after getting the pacifist ending. It's like they were happy, and you started over and you killed all of them. Why?
see,
Because it acknowledges that.
because anybody who knows me and my play of that game, that I loved Papyrus, and you
Mhm.
have this like wonderful bonding moment with Papyrus, and you realize that Papyrus is like one of the like not the sweetest characters, but he's like definitely more on the ends of like I don't really want to hurt humans really. Like I kind of just want to be friends, and I don't realize how how good they could be. And you have this this beautiful moment of getting close to him. Whereas like Sans, you just get the feeling constantly that he already knows what the fuck's going on because he does. But then you have to like go, and then like the idea of going back and killing him in the genocide run afterwards, like that would break me as a person.
Yeah.
Going into more things that like caused fear for me, PT, the playable trailer for Silent Hill.
Oh,
Like
Scott experience we had together.
Scott can attest to that. I handed him the fucking controller because I couldn't be in control of that. I couldn't do it. Like I sat there and they were like because we played it was Ray and Garrett and me and you, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we were sitting there, all four of us.
I was notably not invited to this event.
You were.
I also watched Parasite.
That was a beautiful experience. But they handed me the controller and basically explained to me how to play it, and I was like, okay, cool. And I think I got through like 3 loops around the hall, and like as I progressively kept going, I was getting more and more upset and like uncomfortable to the point where I looked at, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be in control of the actions. I can't let what I choose to do happen. So I handed the controller to Scott. And I just remember that at one point everybody was like, turn around. I was like, don't you fucking turn around, Scott. If you turn around, I'm gonna cry. And yeah.
PT was definitely a very, very solid horror experience. I'm not going to say I screamed, but I definitely let out a few manly war cries that were, slightly higher pitched than I wanted them to be.
Yeah, I was off in the corner with my hands over my eyes like a child.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
A shame that the actual game will never be made.
Man, if the actual game was made, just like the actual most terrifying experience of my life, probably.
Yeah, but now we get Death Stranding, whatever the fuck it's supposed to be.
It's about whales.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And babies.
Yay! Norman Reedus and the funky fetus.
Oh god.
That joke. Yeah. The joke has been made a lot of times.
And I don't know if you guys have been like watching it, but I remember seeing like some sort of Twitter thing, like of it describing it. And it's like Death Stranding will incorporate aspects of social media, and the people responding is just like, "What the fuck is this game?"
Yeah, I have.
What doesn't it incorporate at this point?
I have lots of questions.
Anyways, I trust that it'll not be awful.
Turns out it's just a big that's just their big PR thing. Like nobody knows what the fuck it is, so everybody's talking about it because like, what the fuck is this game?
Mm-hmm. I mean, 100%. Like it's running off of intrigue at this point. But I just kind of hope that like after all of this, when it's actually released, it'll just be like a Banjo-Kazooie collectathon or something like that. It's a racing game.
Yay! I can't wait to have the fetus as a driver.
Oh yeah. He's got good acceleration but low top speed.
I also have Amnesia on here as a terror game because like as cliched as it is cliched for a reason, of Amnesia being one of the scariest horror games I've ever played. Because I think one of the big things about it is like I know a lot of people were saying that Resident Evil 7 was a really good horror game until you get the guns and then you're just an action hero. And I think
yeah, you generally don't like they definitely made Resident Evil 7 a lot more like relatable, I guess, but like you don't play the Resident Evil games to be scared most of the time. Like it's always at the beginning of the game and then it gets into the goofy super virus shit and it's like, okay, this is fun now.
Although I will say some of the scenery from Resident Evil 7 I'm still not okay with.
Well, yeah, it definitely makes you uncomfortable, but you're never like, oh, this is the embodiment of fear. I must now contemplate human existence. It's like, oh, that's gross.
Now when the mom lady becomes a big old spider bitch, like I was probably internally screaming a lot at that point.
or when she just like vomits locusts in your face, and it's like, man, please stop.
Well, she doesn't just vomit locusts in your face. She just like plops down, spreads her legs, and locusts fly out of that. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't handle the amount of like I'm grossed out and also terrified at the same moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I always get a kind of similar how I was describing with Doki Literature Club. When it starts getting really ridiculous like that, like I'm freaked out and I'm grossed out by it, but I'm just like, what the fuck? This is funny.
Yeah, just I don't.
Uh.
Bleh, bleh, bleh. But amnesia. The point was amnesia. Amnesia. You don't get weapons. You don't get to fight back. You just have to hide. And I guess it's a very real, and it gives you like, I guess, kind of a primal fear of like, you're walking through an area, you're stuck here, and the thing that you see is more powerful than you. You can't stop it. So if it catches you, just fucked. And I think that added a lot of like actual genuine fear for me. Also, that horrifying like the monster you can't see in the basement with the water. You know about the water monster? Yeah,
I hate. Yeah, but I also just hate any water or anything.
Well, because it's you're not even underwater. It's just a shallow little thing of water, and you have to jump between crates, and you can tell where the monster is based off of its footsteps in the water. Right. So if you land near it, that motherfucker's gonna kill you. But you can't see it. You can just hear it and see its feet, and you're just like, oh no. So that was a game that just scared the shit out of me.
Luigi's Mansion. like to open the floor.
Just going back to true fear.
Yeah, going back to true fear. So, and I'm talking about the first one, not the second one. The Luigi's Mansion is an interesting game in that it's a Mario game, but like the only part of it that is Mario-esque is Luigi and Egad and the booze, basically. Everything else you could easily take out of a Mario context and have it be its own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Like the ghosts are not like Mario style. The mansion definitely. The mansion is like a real mansion. Like, you know, there's nothing cartoony about the mansion itself.
Shiver still makes me uncomfortable, by the way, speaking about Butler Boy.
Did you say shiver? Oh, yeah, shivers. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. It's like, Luigi's Mansion wasn't like terrifying, but it was creepy. Like, they did an amazing job at making that a pretty, you know, atmospherically scary game. A lot of the ghosts, they didn't look cartoony. They looked and kind of behaved like you would expect ghosts to be, you know, like the way they kind of faded in and out when you shined lights on them or faced them or whatever. And just how, like, the way they were done, it really gave a sense that they were barely attached to the mortal world. And in addition to that, I mentioned last time how I think a lack of soundtrack can be almost as powerful as a good piece of soundtrack. Don't know if you remember, but in Luigi's Mansion, there's the famous like dun 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 dun, dun music that plays, right?
Yeah.
When an area is lit up, so like after you clear the area and the lights are turned on and everything like that, there's no music, and the only music is Luigi whistling. So that creates a really interesting feeling, or at least it did for me whenever I walked through. And, you know, because like you finish an area and like you walk through it and the lights are all on, there's no more ghosts or anything, but for some reason, because there's no music anymore, it like you can't relax. Like you're just walking through those halls waiting for something to pop out at you,
for the lights to shut off again.
Or yeah, or shut off again, which it never does. But like, and just like Luigi whistling and stuff is.
Oh, sorry. What I meant was like when they do the power outages again. Because
yeah, the power outage is scary.
Because they'll do it again too. Like you'll go in and turn on a bunch of lights, and it's like, okay, great, these areas are cleared now.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, a power outage. You're like, oh well, fuck, everything's dark again. Shit.
So yeah, but Luigi's Mansion really like it didn't like scare me per se, but it's scary. I think Luigi's Mansion is kind of scary in the same way that the original Ring was scary. So I don't know. Have you seen the original Ring?
Ringu?
Like Ringu, as they say.
I haven't seen Ringu.
So like it's pretty similar to the American version. The
I haven't
difference
seen the
being
American
that,
version either. So
oh, okay. Well,
let's
the
put this
difference
as I want to put this out there as my reasons for why Luigi's Mansion scared me. I shouldn't say a bitch of a kid. Anything paranormal scared the shit out of me as a child. So a lot of things that involved paranormal stuff I wouldn't watch.
the original Ring is mostly scary because it makes you think about stuff. Like it's not scary because like something pops out or whatever. Like there's obviously the famous like, girl crawling out of the well and stuff.
Samara Morgan.
Right. Well, her name's not Samara Morgan in the original, but yeah, basically. And there's that. But other than that, like the creepiest parts about, and the original Ring has a very different ending than the American one. And I'm trying not to get them mixed up. I think the original one. So in the American one, they kind of, I think they like appease her or like put her to rest, basically. Eventually, and so
Right.
then it's like the problem is solved. In the Japanese one, they all they do is they figure out a way to stop the death from happening, and the only way to do it is like you have to show the video to someone else before she kills you, so you can like transfer your death onto someone else. And so like it kind of leaves you. It doesn't actually show them doing it, but they take the tape and they just kind of like drive away, and it leaves you thinking like, well, shit. I guess they're gonna go do it, or are they? Are they gonna subject some innocent person to it, or are they not? And then it makes you think like, there's no way to stop it, and like you have to do this and have to that. And it's just kind of like a looming threat, and so it fills your head and just keeps you thinking about it and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what Luigi's Mansion did. Is there weren't any like jump scary parts, but there were a lot of ghosts from Luigi's Mansion and a lot of parts that I just could never get out of my head, and it would appear in my nightmares occasionally. So I think it's good. I think it's also really good when you can do that in spite of like Luigi.
It's
because
become
like
the ass of Nintendo.
right, which I guess he wasn't necessarily back then.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But
He
that was a
wasn't.
while ago. He definitely is now. Well, he got the Year of Luigi, which I guess they figured made up for it.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah,
Oh.
I chalk Luigi's Mansion up. That's another one of those games where I'm like, Nintendo, I don't know if they can make a game like Luigi's Mansion anymore, where they're willing to deviate from their, Toad formula. Is what I'm going to coin it as.
Do you have
So-
anything else to add into this group of things?
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
I'm sorry, I meant like another new topic. New games you can think of.
I rest my case.
Cool. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you want to like come back to this or not, but there is an interesting creepypasta-esque theory about Luigi's Mansion that ups its creepiness factor. I don't know if you want to like circle back around to this later. If
Yeah.
you just...
Go for it now.
Okay, so and I'm gonna hopefully not butcher this, but basically, if anyone who's played a lot of Mario games, you'll notice that King Boo looks different in Luigi's Mansion than he does in every other Mario game. So in the normal Mario games, King Boo is just like a normal Boo, but bigger with like a gold crown. And in Luigi's Mansion, he's much scarier. Like he has these weird shadow around his eyes. His crown is different.
Aren't his eyes also red? Or am I just
yes,
thinking?
his eyes are also a different color. So at first, people kind of chalked this up to just a design, like the artistic direction of Luigi's Mansion being different. But then, and I don't know if this, I can't remember if this came out before or after the second Luigi's Mansion game, but the second Luigi's Mansion game was definitely made after, and its art direction was much different than the first one, and it was made after this formula that I'm talking about started getting instigated, where they started trying to make everything more consistent across the games, right?
Yeah.
And despite that, King Boo in the second Luigi's Mansion is the same King Boo as in the first one. And this is after like they started making things consistent. So you would think that they would have gone with the other design, or that they would use the Luigi's Mansion design in further games. But in games that came after that, like Mario Kart 8, it's back to the like normal Mario game design. So again, I can't remember when this theory came out. This may have just helped add to it. But the theory is, if you remember from the how Luigi's Mansion plays out, basically King Boo, like, he goes into a painting and then he's kind of like inside Bowser, and you knock his head off and then King Boo comes out, and then that's like how the final boss goes, right? So there's a theory, and I think there's more evidence supporting it than I can remember, but there's a theory that King Boo and the Luigi's Mansion universe, or like Luigi's Mansion is like a separate timeline that takes place after Mario has defeated Bowser, like for good, and Bowser's just dead. And King Boo is Bowser, but like dead Bowser.
King Koopa has become King Boo.
Exactly. And there's other things. So I think the fortune teller in Luigi's Mansion is one of the big supporting things, because after you bring her a certain amount of Mario's stuff, she's like, I see the hideous visage of Bowser, but I thought Mario had soundly defeated Bowser. How could this be? Is he somewhere in the mansion? So yeah, there's a theory going around that that King Boo is just Bowser's like ghost, essentially.
Yeah, it always kind of struck me as odd. Like, what? I'm assuming there's some sort of deep Mario lore about where Boos come from, but in Luigi's Mansion, it's weird because Boos exist, but they're also like normal people ghosts, and it's like, why one but not the other?
Well, also, you know that the clip, the laugh of the Boos is a sped up version of Bowser's laugh. Further evidence to support that might actually be a thing. Anyways,
there's also a slight distinction, and like I think before people have mentioned, they're like, you know, the like a lot of times Boos are kind of considered a species and not like dead people. They're just kind of,
where they're just like a weird ghost like entity that happens to haunt creepy places where people traditionally die.
Right. Anyway, it's interesting.
I guess moving from fear, let's just go to fucking sadness, because why not? Seems like a... Actually, no, I wanted to go one thing before I go sadness. Have any of you played Soma?
No.
That game made me fucking question my humanity multiple times, because that game does a great job about, like, kind of picking your mind to be like, so, it's... Scott, do you care if we spoil it?
I don't care.
It's kind of a horror-based game where I think you're in a robot, right, Taylor?
Yeah, you're in well, technically you're for the better part of the game, you're in like a diving suit that has a human body in it. But yeah, you're basically in a cybernetic body. Yeah.
Your consciousness was basically copied into a cybernetic body, but your consciousness exists in two places now. And because of that, there's multiple questions of like, so do I kill my like previous self, or is that like a form of suicide? And it asks all these questions, and I was not ready for any of them.
Well, yeah, okay, so I guess if we're just gonna spoil it, there's a part in which you have to transfer your consciousness from the original body to a new one that's better suited to the task at hand, because you're like really deep underwater and you need a better diving suit. And when you do that, it's not like your consciousness turns off in one and goes on in the other. You're copied over. So your original body still has you in it. And it's like, okay, did it work? And you just walk up to it and have to turn it off. And it really fucks with you, because it's like, what is consciousness? Because clearly consciousness is not transferable. It's just you're like, you have the memories of your past self transferred over, and now you're this new one that's just been recently created.
Yeah,
and you're not, you can never actually transfer your consciousness. It's just, yeah.
And it plays a lot with that idea, and that was like, I didn't know exactly what to put that under as a true emotion, but that game fucked with me.
Deep existential dread.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Not only like deep in two meanings, because you are at the bottom of the ocean, and the ocean scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you're at the bottom, like...
I'm still scared. I'm actually probably way more scared if I'm at the bottom of the ocean than I am if I'm at the top. I always remember that one comic that's like, somebody's like, why do you want, like, it's a guy looking at a telescope, he's like, why do you want to explore space? There's so much left in this this world, like the oceans. And it shows pictures of like deep sea fish, and it just has him go, wow, the space is amazing. And I'm like, that's how I feel a lot of the time.
We want to figure out space because we want to get away from the creepy ocean.
It's a scary place. But I guess I will, like I said, I will go into sad now, which the first one being the one that I mentioned last podcast, 2 podcasts ago. No, it was the first podcast, actually. It was
been 3 podcasts ago.
Yeah, I basically said it in every one. The moment that I mentioned from Skyward Sword with Zelda freezing, like, I may have been in a bad place at the time that I watched that moment, which would have led to me being much more susceptible to being sad. But basically, like I said before, it's a moment where, you know, you're every other Zelda game you're going through and having basically Link and Zelda be... Zelda doesn't know Link at all, and she's just the princess of the area that Link happens to... Wait, did I say... Yeah, I said that right. Zelda happens to be the princess of the area that Link just lives in, and then suddenly Link has a call to action and becomes the hero or whatever, and then he saves the princess, and that's kind of it. And it wasn't until, like, he knew her in Ocarina of Time, but barely. It was more he walked in on her when she was young and was like, oh hey, I'm Link, and she's like, oh hey, I'm Zelda, and it was like, okay, cool. By the way, I feel like you're the hero of time, so here's an ocarina kind of thing. And they never really had like a proper relationship. They just kind of met by happenstance or fate, whatever you want to call it. But then Skyward Sword is the first one where Zelda and Link are friends and close friends and have been for however long it is before Link becomes a hero of time or everything, I guess. So in this one, Link and Zelda have like a relationship, like they're friends, and then there's the horrible point where Girahim's fucking asshole ways cockblock Link, and I hate it. Because they're flying through the air and Zelda just looks at him and goes, Link, I have something to tell you. And Link's like, what is it? And she's like, I think that and then a tornado comes and kidnaps her, and I'm like, you fucking, no, she was about to admit her love to him, you assholes.
Oh, I don't think Link actually says, what is it?
No, he just blankly stares at her.
Exists as he does.
He blankly stares at her, and she's like, I understand.
I know what you're trying to say. Or rather not trying to say at all, because you are
a mute,
some
apparently.
Sort of mentally damaged creature.
He breaks a lot of pots, so you know.
What's wrong with you, Link? Who hurt you?
I just want money. But yeah, so there's that whole thing with like they actually have a real relationship. They're actually like real friends, and like it's great and beautiful, and they could legitimately become a couple in this one rather than it just being like, you saved us, Link, thanks. All right, fuck off. But But there's a moment when Zelda's being frozen, and as she's being frozen, they're like talking about this whole thing about how like she's becoming the goddess who was the person who like basically possessed her body or some shit like that. And they're having this discussion, and Zelda just looks at him and goes, "Don't worry, I'll always be your Zelda." And I just cried because for some reason, having her sit there and finally acknowledge that moment, I was just like, "This is too much for me. This is the epitome of me just dying." So yeah, that's a great. Um, the entirety of Nier is just depressing as shit. Nobody gets to be happy in Nier. Nobody gets to be happy in Nier. Nier 1 and Nier Automata. Nobody gets to be happy at all. Because that is the whole goal of Nier's storyline. And I am not even going to sit here and try to explain the plot of Nier, because if I did, we would be here for this could span like 6 podcasts for me just explaining how it is that Nier works. But
And let's not try to get 6 podcasts worth of time into this one. I would like to go to bed at some point.
I would much prefer not going through six podcasts worth of Nier right now either. So so Nier has just a ton of just heartbreaking emotional ones, and like I said, one of the ones is there is a character from the first game named Kaine, and her spot in the second game is just heartbreaking to me because it's a poor fucking kid from the first game who was basically used as a weapon, who lost his memories by the second game. And he's like, I always come back to this place because it reminds me of her, and you're like, oh no, I know who that is. And then her music starts playing, you're like, oh god, no. And then he has this whole discussion where he's like, even though I can't remember anything, I will always remember her. And I'm just sitting there in tears, like, why did you do this to me, Nier? Why?
That's actually kind of reminds me of a Kingdom Hearts thing.
Oh no. Is it when Goofy dies?
No, it's not when Goofy dies. But it's in the game that no one wants to talk about. 358 over 2 days.
Mostly because it has a stupid name.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone agrees. But I actually like that game. I think it's neat. I don't like the mechanically. I don't, because it was on the DS and it wasn't that good. But they like so basically like you play as a character. The whole game you're playing essentially as a character in the evil organization. And so the whole game is played from that perspective, and instead of going around defeating the darkness or whatever, you're essentially working for the darkness, still killing Heartless because you need like stuff, and it's weird. But they introduce a character, and like the reason and what she is and stuff is a bunch of bullshit, so I'm not even gonna try to explain it. But basically the organization is Organization 13 because there's 13 members. But in that game, they introduced the 14th member of Organization 13, and
dumb.
Yeah, and it's a girl, and basically you play as Roxas in that game. Roxas, and they get to be, and he's the newest member of Organization 13, and him and that girl get to be really good friends, and they go on like heartless hunting romps together.
Oh no.
They do a bunch of crazy stuff together. But because of what happens in the game, she starts to like slowly lose her sense of self, and very little by little, the identity and the personality of her are slowly overwritten by another one, to the point, and then like reality starts getting overwritten as well, and like everyone, their memories keep getting replaced with memories of the thing that's overriding her. And then like at the end of the game, there's a scene where like she's disappearing, and Rox is like holding her, and he's like I don't know who you are, and like I can't remember your name, but I'm crying right now and stuff. And like
Where I would be sitting there like with the game in my hand, going, "Me too, me too."
Yeah, and it's just like it basically what you said reminded me of that, where like she's sitting there disappearing, and she's like, "I know you can't remember me, but you know, I want you to live on without me, basically, and destroy Kingdom Hearts." I remember that. She's like at the very end, she's like, "Could you do one thing for me?" He's like, "What's that?" "Kingdom Hearts, fuck it up." And he's
Those
like,
were her
"All
exact
right,
words.
boss." Yeah, those are exact words. He's like, "All right, boss." He goes to fuck it up, and then Riku kicks his ass, and then he doesn't destroy Kingdom Hearts. So, but yeah, it was an emotional moment,
Oh, I'm sure it
even
was.
though it was a little crazy. But Shion,
Did anybody else
he's
have
also cute as the button.
Did anybody else have any other things that they could think of? I have one specific thing that I wanted to end my list with because I felt like it was just a good place to end.
I will say that I'm not going to name. Oh, sorry, Taylor.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I'm not going to name specific stuff, but there are a lot of moments in the Ace Attorney series that will really hit you hard.
Let's see. It's going to be a good segue. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Ace Attorney series, and then more recently, again, I'm not going to say specifically why, just because it's too. I don't want to spoil anything about. It's like there's certain games that I'm more okay with spoiling than others, and Ace Attorney and Danganronpa are definitely not two of them. But
no, that's completely fair. We are going to have an entire podcast that's going to be Danganronpa spoilers. And I'm going to state multiple times at the beginning of it. I'm like, play this game first if you haven't played it. Please don't listen to this. Just go play the fucking game first.
But yeah, I will say that the first case of V3 did hit me like a truck.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember now.
Yeah, so that did and then of course the most famous one in the Ace Attorney series is the last case of the third game. Usually kills people. There is a screenshot from the fifth game that Ray would just randomly send to me sometimes, and it's an extremely disturbing screenshot, and it's the reason why that's the only M-rated Ace Attorney game.
Oh God!
And
is it the moment from Steins Gate that still scares the shit out of me?
It was similar.
Oh God!
It was basically it involved basically like an 11-year-old covered in blood with soulless eyes.
Oh, that's good. That's what I want to see.
I was like, it was something I was not expecting to come out of an Ace Attorney game.
Speaking of that moment in thing, just to quickly explain it, is just there's one moment in the entirety of I guess it gets dark. There's one moment in Steins Gate where there's just Okabe gets a picture of a severed head. That's it. He just gets a picture of a severed head. It's on the screen for probably not even 2 seconds, and it's burned into my head forever because it's horrifying. It comes out of nowhere. For the most part, it's not a calm show, but nothing like that is ever really brought up. But the reason I wanted to transition it from that, the Danganronpa and Ace Attorney, the reason I wanted to do that was because I put down the triumph that you feel at the end of the Danganronpa trials, or the Ace Attorney trials. The moment when you solve the case, you put all the fucking pieces together, and you sit there, and you're like, I fucking did it. I fucking did it. That's such a great feeling. Mm-hmm. So that's what that ended up making me think of, is just I really just love that triumphant moment. It's I guess it's that way with a lot of games, but it's when you beat something that's hard, or especially the Danganronpa case, or the Phoenix Wright cases, is that you finally find out who did it, and you just get to feel that moment of oh hell yeah. I don't know.
Especially Danganronpa, because you literally shoot evidence at things.
Yeah.
So you get to like just really punch it in there.
Take that, bitch.
No, yeah, I agree. There are so many Ace Attorney cases where like and like it does a good job of building it up where like the music would be racing, everyone's like, but you can't prove that, can you? And I'm like, oh yes I can. Just slam my hand down on the evidence. And there's like in the newer Ace Attorney games, they do a really good job too with like when you do that pivotal evidence thing, like it'll like the camera will like pan 6 times around Phoenix and them, and then he'll like point, and then the camera will like cut to like 6 different angles, and it's just like they like really ham it up.
It's not spoiling it. It's just like saying like there are moments. There's a moment, I think, I don't know in the last game, but I know in the first 2 Danganronpa games that you're on the final trial, and when you put a certain piece of evidence in, the main theme starts playing, and you're just like, oh hell yeah, I'm ready to go. I figured out the entire mystery of this entire situation, and you're just like, this is fucking great. This is the best moment. The moment you just hear that Danganronpa, and you're just like, oh no.
Yeah,
oh no, you hear you hear that slow build up, that just like, and you're like, oh. Yeah, and then you hear that, and you're like, oh my god, yes. And you're just like,
don't worry, it's gonna happen. It happens in the 3rd game.
Oh, I'm gonna be screaming at that point. Like that's gonna be a moment of pure joy for me.
Oh, I don't know.
It'll be a moment of pure joy because that theme song plays when I'm like figuring out evidence, and I can't not like feel that moment of just like, oh hell yeah. Even if it's not,
yeah.
even if it's not like even if it's like an ending thing that I'm like, oh yeah, that fucked up kind of thing. Like I can still get behind it and be like, yeah, this is great kind of thing. So.
Our Danganronpa cast is going to be great.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be like wonderful. Because it's gonna be a lot of Rafe being like, "Fuck Nagito," and me being like, "I like Nagito."
Also, I kind of spaced out for the past 5 minutes while you guys are talking about Dangan. What are we doing now?
Well, basically, we're done, I think.
Oh,
unless
okay.
anybody else has anything else to add.
So you said like accomplishment is the emotion you're getting from this?
Triumph, basically, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're still talking about spoilers, and I'm going to cheat a bit because you said Dark Souls, but I'm going to talk about Darkest Dungeon.
Sure,
an accomplishment. Because the final boss of that, I'm not going to describe it in too much detail, but, you know, Darkest Dungeon is a very difficult game. A lot of people die along the way, and it's all about, you know, striving on despite the consequences and the losses and all that. And the final boss of the game, when you beat it, it's like a big yeah moment. But there's a moment in the fight where unless you like have like the perfect strat and just blitz it before it can do anything to you, there's a point in the fight where it uses one move that, so at any other point in the game, if a character gets all their health taken out, they don't die immediately. They go into death's door where there's a chance of them dying whenever they take damage, but they can potentially just like fight through it and all that. The final boss has a move called Come Unto Your Maker, in which it auto kills one character and you have to choose which one it takes out.
Oh no.
And that feeling of having to make the sacrifice of one of like, because if it's the team that you take to the final boss, it's going to be like your best one. So you're like attached to these characters and all that. So you have to pick which one goes down, and they all have these like, each like character class has its own like quote that it says when you select it. And a lot of them are like, oh no, please don't, or just like, okay, whatever. But my favorite is the leper class, which that kind of sets the tone of the game, that one of the classes is a person with leprosy. But he's cool because he's like a warrior who's just kind of accepted his disease and all the problems it comes with. And if you select him to be the sacrifice, he just says, "Spare the others, I'm ready." And that like actually makes me like misty eyed. Just that delivery.
Oh man.
Also, just the fact that like that would be such a like that would be like if somebody said that while you were in a situation like that, you're sitting there with like, you guys have been fighting for so long. There's 4 of you guys. You're ready, and he just goes, "Spare the others. I'm ready." You just be like, oh my god,
senpai, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that the fact that it's because a lot of the other stuff is like the game has a lot of like RNG mechanics, but the fact that you have to pick the one that is guaranteed to die is like super rough.
Yeah.
And then when you beat it, it's like, oh yeah, we made it, despite yeah,
Despite Jeffrey being dead.
oh fucking Jeffrey.
Poor Jeffrey. I like the like different angles we took on that. Poor Jeffrey. Fucking Jeffrey.
God damn it, fucking feeding.
Yeah.
Is that it for the podcast tonight?
Sure.
I'll throw out my last joke thing.
No.
Going back to sadness. The saddest moment I ever experienced in a video game. Definitely when Flood died at the end of Super Mario Sunshine.
And this has been the Flask Full of Failure podcast. Thanks for tuning in. No, but seriously. Wait, what? Flood? What?
It doesn't actually die. Like he like dies, and then like a minute and a half later, they like the toads come up and they're like, "Hey, we fixed it."
Because it's a machine, it can't die.
Yeah.
But you just put it back. Fucking.
I will say though that like the final boss of Super Mario Sunshine, like, because basically the way, if you don't remember, the way you have to do it is it's Bowser in a hot tub first of all, which is ridiculous.
It's hilarious.
You have to like rocket jump and then slam down on all the sides of the hot tub, and essentially the longer that battle goes on, the more like Flood starts like being unable to speak properly because you're slamming into the hot tub so much, until basically the idea is like you're breaking him as you're defeating Bowser, and then like you fall back down to Delfino Island or whatever, and Isle Delfino, and then like the one thing it did get me slightly was when like the very first thing that Flood like says to you when you pick him up at the beginning of the game is he's like, I'm Flood, whatever, I hope to be of assistance. And then like at the end when he's dying, he's just like, Mario, was I of assistance? And then just fucking dies. And I was like,
Oh no.
and then like right after that, there's a really cool shot, and I always remember this. There's a really neat shot of the like final shine sprite descending into the shine gate. And I don't know what it is about it, but the way that the camera pans down, the music that was playing, and just the angle it was at always stuck with me. I thought it was really cool. But yeah, and then like the toads fix him, and then he comes up and he's just like, the vacation starts now, and then the credits roll. So I'm like,
And then the dance party begins.
yeah, then the dance party. But yeah, it's like, was I of assistance? I'm like, oh yes, you were, Flood.
Come back to me, baby.
Oh, Flood.
All right. Well,
Anyway.
I think that about wraps up the podcast. So this has been Logan, Taylor, and Scott, and you can still find us right now on iTunes and SoundCloud. I'm also going to start trying to upload these on YouTube as well, so you can watch them even though there's not really much going on in the actual video. Still some other place to put it. But yeah, so thanks everyone for watching or listening, whatever it is you're doing.
Please don't
Get off my lawn.
There you go.